Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here for the next installment here during this live week, during this back to school, get back into fall, whatever it is, wherever you are on your cello journey, getting out of the summer routine, back into the fall routine. That's what this week is all about. So I hope you're finding this helpful. I'm going to talk about this now. This topic today comes from a comment actually that was left on the channel where someone asked. It was, I believe, Calm Souls was the channel that left it, and asked, could you do a piece on effectively using dedicated practice? Which sounded like a great topic to me. So I thought, why not? This would be fantastic. So, take a sip of my coffee here. Effectively using dedicated practice. First of all, the statement to me is a little bit redundant, and that's good. That's okay. I think one of the things that we get into when we're beginners or novices, or maybe even if we're a little bit more advanced player, is that we can get caught in a whirlwind of thought, right? And so, really dedicated practice should be effective practice by default. Effective practice should be dedicated practice by default. They almost, when it comes to practicing cello, they almost mean the same thing. I'm going to take a guess. I'm going to take a stab and say that maybe what was meant by the statement was, if I'm dedicating myself, say, to one piece, or dedicating this time to one single something, how can I make that practice the most effective? Is, I think, what the statement means. I hope that's what it means, because that's kind of where I'm going to go with it. But also, you have to remember that a big part of advancing, learning, moving forward with this discipline is learning how to think about it. Now, that doesn't mean that we all become robots. It's not that I want you to think just like me, or to think just like some other famous cellist or whatever. It's that learning, what's important, what's not, what kinds of things I should focus on, which I think is part of what's in that question, and how to focus my time. That's time is always a factor. I mean, that's why we want effective practice, because there's only so many hours in the day, right? So my big thing here lately, there's my cube there, my favorite new toy, here on the ground. Something happened. Uh-oh, why is it not coming on? Oh, there it goes. This timer cube, which I talked about yesterday on the gear video live stream. Using a timer is a great way to make your practice more effective, and there's a couple of reasons for that. I actually thought of this video idea, kind of a funny video idea. I don't know if I have time to make it or not, maybe in the future, but it was going to be around the expression of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, for any of you that are unsure what that means. FOMO. And I say that half jokingly, half serious, because when we're practicing, that's kind of the rut, okay, the vicious cycle that we get into, is that either we're thinking about something else, okay, we're thinking about all the tasks that, all the life that's going on around us, and it's hard for us to focus on what we're doing. Or we're focused on cello, but we're focused on too many things at once. We're just, it's like, hand position, bow hold, intonation, rhythm, articulation, style, and I just keep bouncing around, okay, until I haven't, I've dedicated my time, right? I practiced. I sat there maybe for 3 or 4 hours and practiced, but I was bouncing around so much, or I was thinking about something else the whole time and was kind of unfocused, and so the practice was ineffective. So the timer, when we have this fear of missing out, or fear that we're going to forget something, that we're going to forget to pay that bill later, or we're going to forget to turn in that homework later, or write that paper, or whatever, we're thinking about that because it feels like we're spending so much time doing this other thing, right? And then, of course, when we're writing the paper later on, we're thinking about practicing cello. It's just a vicious cycle. So having the timer creates this space, right? Creates a canvas, a time canvas. Ooh, I like that expression. A time canvas that you can put anything you want on that canvas in that little space of time for the allotted amount that you've given. And that frees you up, okay? Or it should free you up. I hope it frees you up. I myself am learning to do that more and more. I've used it, I've done it, but I think it's no longer for me a nice idea. It's not a hack. It's not a tip or a trick. It's the thing that you have to do. You say, I'm going to spend this much time on this, and then I'm going to move on to something else. If you don't, okay, because when you say, for example, I've been learning here. I'm going to try to make a video about this later. Pull the cello out. I was doing this myself earlier this week. I got a couple of students, they're doing an audition, and they're playing Shostakovich 5. And, oh, by the way, please put your questions down in the comments. And I'm, relearning Shostakovich 5. I've been lucky enough to perform that piece twice in my life. But relearning it, and gosh, first of all, it's just a great piece of music. We just, and plus I already know it, right? So when I sit down to play, I just, all right. I just want to play it because it's so awesome. And, the younger we are, the more we do that, right? The more we just kind of play through stuff to the end, from beginning to end. But what really drives progress is when I say, okay, it's Shostakovich, it's 20th century, it's his own unique style, the intonation, the notes just hopping around, especially when it gets to the middle of this section. Trying to play from memory here. Okay, that's the part I was forgetting there. Okay. G sharp or A flat to C flat to G flat. Lots of flats here, as it's marked here in the excerpt. And so one of the things I was doing is, put on my timer here, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to practice, or maybe I was looking at the clock. No, I was using my timer, because I remember putting it on the highest one. I was like, the intonation's, such a thing here. I'm going to do it for the full 7 minutes. This is as high as my little timer cube goes. And I was so really focused on the intonation. I'm practicing. I'm really focused on it. And I got to about 5 minutes, and I realized that 5 minutes is a long time to spend on something. Isn't that crazy? What's 5 minutes? 5 minutes is nothing. 5 minutes is absolutely nothing. It's a blip. But if you're really, really focused, like I'm going to do just this passage, just this excerpt, just the intonation, it's everything. It's plenty of time to solve a few problems, maybe solve a lot of problems, get focused on the intonation, improve your intonation, and then move on. Okay, now it's time to spend 5 minutes on, my bow. Okay, I was working with a student, student wants to get out in the middle of the bow or the upper half too much, right? So like staying at the frog and just that, 5 minutes on the clock, go. I'm going to stay near the frog. I'm going to stay near the lower half of the bow. And that's all I'm going to think about for those 5 minutes. This is how you practice effectively. Now, why is the time? Now, why couldn't you just say, I'm just going to focus on, playing in the lower half, and I'm just going to focus on it for a little bit, and then I'm going to do something else? What's the problem with that? The problem with that is that, the problem with that is the time factor creates a contract. All right, I think I already said that. It creates the canvas, okay? It's the thing, because we like to think that we try to like approach practicing like we're machines, okay? We forget the human factor. We're people with life going on and emotions and all these things and responsibilities. We have a lot of stuff to think about, I have 2 kids, I have a wife, I have a full-time job, and, I have cello students, I have this YouTube channel. And what can I do? What can I give myself to help give me permission to focus on this thing, that I need to fix? Well, the amount of time helps me do that because it's just 5 minutes, all right? In the amount of time it takes to take out the trash, I could make a great improvement in my bow distribution. Or, in the amount of time that it takes to make a pot of coffee, all right, I could greatly improve the rhythm in this one line, okay? One measure, whatever. And we also, so I've kind of said it here, 12 minutes in, I've said the same thing over and over again. The timepiece is so important. It's everything. It's everything. Now, the other piece of it about being effective is and I've said this before, but I don't think I've said it a lot, and I don't know if I said it during the college live stream the other day, since we mentioned the human aspect of all of this, the kind of emotional, psychological stuff that's going on. By the way, I am not a psychologist. I am not a therapist. I am not a medical professional by any stretch of the imagination. I've just tried to read up and make some educated guesses here. I like to say I'm just a curious cellist. But we have, I mentioned, the fear of missing out. There's also this kind of fear that I'm not going to get enough done, or that focusing on such a small thing is not going to be very productive, or, I'm not going to get to my end goal that I need to get to. And, this is as good as it gets. We trick ourselves into thinking that the whirlwind kind of practice where we're bouncing around and going from this thing to this thing to this thing to this thing, we trick ourselves into thinking that that's working, and it's not, okay? And so what you have to think about is you have to think about the whole week, okay? Those of us that have, taken lessons or are studying or doing lessons once a week, what does the whole week look like? And if I fix these 2 or 3 things today, and I fix 2 or 3 things, even if I just fix one thing today, okay, and I fix one thing tomorrow, and I fix one thing the next day, or I skip a day, and then I make up for it, and I fix 3 or 4 things on another day, what does that look like at the end of the week? And we get so short-sighted and so impatient and I don't know. It's one thing I would go back and do differently in college, is to think about the broad strokes of the calendar and how my little bitty accomplishments are going to add up over time to my next lesson. Okay? That I don't have to get it all done today. All right? We're so caught in that trap that it's all got to be done today. It all has to be finished today, for whatever reason. And, giving ourselves permission to spread it out, right? Yeah, that's a biggie. That's a biggie. What is the whole week of practicing going to give you if you practice this way? It's going to give you a lot. Because remember, we're solving problems. One thing I would say to look at in your own practice, when you say, am I practicing effectively? Do I have effective, dedicated practice going on? One test is, when you go to learn a new piece, is it easier? Or when you go to learn the next thing, whatever, you're done with an etude or, a piece or whatever, and you're moving on to the next thing, something that's a little more challenging or requires a little bit more musical knowledge. Is it easier? Is it more difficult? Is it the same? Does it feel like you're just reinventing the wheel? It should be easier. There should be some things that you know now, all right? There should be some things that you're aware of, all right, that make the next something easier. Looking back in college, I realized that every etude, every piece kind of felt the same. I was learning, I was getting better, but I wasn't really building anything. Well, that's not true. I take that back. I shouldn't say that. I did build, some skills, obviously, but not to the extent that I could have. All right, because I didn't think this way. I wasn't mature enough to think about, the whole week, the whole semester, the whatever, to think in long-term goals that way. All right, about building skills and building this thing today, and building on it tomorrow and having it finished, done. There is something very, very efficient about finishing something in a complete and solid way. Yeah. Okay. So there was something else I was going to say in there about efficient and effective practice. Well, I'm going to speak more about this on Saturday. But the other thing that we've also, got to get better at is, and, since we're here on YouTube, is using video. And I know we think that it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. Oh, everybody's here doing it. Everybody's here watching. I don't think it's truly happened yet. I think it will eventually, probably soon, but not to the extent that it should be happening for people that want to learn. I, as a classroom teacher, made this pledge to myself a few years ago when I started showing a lot more videos in class and sharing videos with students, is that I would not teach in a vacuum anymore. Because a lot of times, students are coming from households where there's no music. The parents are very supportive, but they're not musicians, and there's no other musicians in the family. Or maybe they're the only person in their house playing a musical instrument. And they come to me, and they're not in lessons, and so they come to me, and I am their, musical knowledge, and then that's it. And it's back and forth. Home to me, and there are no other quote-unquote teachers in their life. Vacuum, right? Complete musical vacuum, and it works, all right? We have many students who do many wonderful things. But the more you get on this medium, all right, this place right here, YouTube, or wherever, and watch what other people are saying, the more focused you're going to be able to be, the more decisions you're going to be able to make about what you're doing, the more you're going to be able to think correctly, because I mentioned this at the beginning, learning how to think about this stuff that we're doing. you got to watch a lot of people. All right, you got to go through it different ways. There's too many variables. There's too many variables. This has, just as a side note, this has really hit home with me, because I'm trying to learn Russian. I've been trying to learn it for years, but kind of like back and forth, and I've kind of gotten serious about finally learning it. And when I use multiple apps, the learning is so much better. If I go with just like one, like if I'm just on Duolingo for like a few days, I learn, but not like if I hit Duolingo and Babbel and Rosetta Stone, all three of them a little bit, okay? Because they're all a little bit different, they offer something different, and so you have to deal with all the different variables that they offer. Anyway, just as a side note. Oh, got a question here. Thank you. Do you offer online lessons? Depends. All right. I always say, wherever you are in the world, and tell me, where you are in the world, in person is better, it just is. I've got some stuff coming here on the channel that I think is going to help everyone, video lessons, and certainly, I'm happy to answer questions. If you have a specific question about technique, I'd love to answer it. If there's something that you're working on, or something that you're having a hard time with, I mean, that's the great thing about being here live. Do you have you had an in-person teacher before, or have you had another online teacher? That's right. You can click on the website. You can email me there. I'm going to talk a lot about this on Saturday, actually, about learning online. What I think is important. Well, actually, I kind of just said it. Hearing it from many different people, hearing it from many different voices. I think that's what online is for. That's what it should exist for us to be able to go and increase our knowledge. And that's like super duper important for playing this instrument. Anyway, I hope that kind of answered your question there, about offering online lessons. I don't know, maybe in the future, there are some cases where I would offer online lessons to somebody. Studio is pretty full here actually at the moment, but yeah, I would be open to some online lessons depending on a few factors. So it's something I would talk to people individually about, all right, if they wanted to do online lessons with me. So thank you for the question. If you do go to my website, actually, I have video exchange lessons, which I think is really the best way to do online lessons. So if you go there, it's basically, you recording a video of your playing, sending it to me making notes. Okay, I will record a video specifically for you, not a tutorial on YouTube, but a response, all right, to what you have played for me, and then I will send that back to you, and that way we hear everything that's going on, right? You get to hear the tone, you really get to hear the intonation, because we have these magical little boxes in our pockets that make amazing videos and get amazing sound, and so that's really the best way to do online if you're in need of an online teacher. So, and actually those are for sale on my website. Should have mentioned that in the beginning. Sorry about that. All right, awesome. Well, this has been great as usual. I'm really enjoying doing these live streams this week. We're going to do one just for parents this afternoon, specifically about, we did one about for parents earlier in the week. This next one coming up this afternoon is specifically about school orchestra. A few little variables there. Many of the things I would say would be similar advice as I mentioned earlier in the week, but a few different things to consider. And I am, a middle school orchestra teacher, so hopefully I can offer some advice, offer some help there in that area to parents. All right. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. There's one coming up also tomorrow, and I still haven't scheduled the one for Saturday, but the one on Saturday is going to be our final one, the wrap-up, and just talking about, what to do this fall. Okay, what can you do to better help yourself learning online using YouTube here to help your cello playing. All right, thanks.